I think he's great. I think he's funny.
He's wonderful.
I like him.
Chris Pratt has only positive feelings towards Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
The 46-year-old's post featured photos of Jack as well as of the father-son duo, including attending sports outings and feeding animals.
What happens when one of Hollywood's most bankable stars looks straight at the most polarizing man in public health and says, "I love him, and he's family"? Chris Pratt didn't post a manifesto. He sat on a podcast, talked about dinners, cards, and inside jokes, and kept saying the same thing. He likes the guy. No policy talk, no point-by-point defense, just loyalty. And that single easy line detonated a louder question than any headline. How far does family go when the internet wants a fight? Because this isn't just a Hollywood soundbite. It's a collision of fame, power, and a last name that carries weight in every room. And as the noise built, Pratt did something different. He slipped into quiet dad mode and marked a birthday.
If things had gone differently for Taylor, she could be related to this guy right now.
The timing wasn't random, it was revealing. Keep watching, because the dinner table story is only the start of what really set this off. On August 18th, Chris Pratt sat down for a long, loose chat and did something most celebrities dodge. He drew a bright line between a person and the storm around their name. He talked about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. like you talk about a cousin at Sunday dinner. Cards on the table, jokes in the air, no policy debates. He repeated the simplest point because that's how family talk sounds.
Chris Pratt is opening up about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., calling him funny, wonderful, and
he likes him, thinks he's funny, calls him wonderful. He framed it as private life, not a political briefing, just a relative he gets along with at the table. Then he widened the lens. Politics, he said, is brutal. Hollywood isn't far off. The version of you that headlines invent can be unrecognizable, even fictional. He acknowledged why RFK Jr. draws heat.
Yo, what's up, 12s? We got some big fans here. Chris Pratt, Jack Pratt, father-son duo, rocking that hawk.
Tying it to the way anyone linked to a divisive president gets painted in the worst possible light. He wasn't there to fact-check every claim or litigate every controversy around RFK Jr.'s current government role. He chose another lane, assume the best about the man he knows and wish him well. It was casual in tone but sharp in effect. A-list actor, famous last name in the family tree. A warm endorsement of character without touching the policy minefield. That balance, personal loyalty over public labels, lit the match. And next comes
Chris Pratt. Have a word with yourself. Are you serious? RFK Jr.
The part the internet couldn't ignore. What that loyalty looks like when the relative holds real power. So who is the man at the center of all this? Not just a famous surname, he's the nation's health chief. The person steering a massive agency that touches hospitals, medicine, and how the country responds when things go sideways. Since stepping into that role, he's chased big, camera-ready wellness pushes, throwback fitness tests, challenge clips with other officials.
But I don't want to take food away from anybody. If you like a McDonald's cheeseburger,
meant to sell the idea that health starts with daily discipline. It grabbed attention fast. Fans called it refreshing, critics called it a sideshow. Inside the building, the assignment is heavier. After a deadly incident rattled the public health community, staff voices grew louder about safety, trust, and leadership tone. That's the real pressure point. Less about viral workouts, more about whether the department can rebuild confidence from the inside out while the outside world argues about optics.
Okay, let's go.
And that's exactly why Pratt's words hit so hard. Warm, personal praise lands differently when the relative in question holds national power. Family loyalty collides with a job that leaves fingerprints on everyday life. Prescriptions, labs, clinics, budgets. which is why the reaction didn't stop at headlines. It snowballed. Next, we'll see how fast that wave formed and who chose which side. The clip landed like a spark in dry grass.
President Trump was cooking at McDonald's the other day and giving people French fries. And people criticized me, and they said, well, you know...
Fans who followed him for years heard a simple family sentiment and moved on. Others saw a famous face praising a powerful official and wanted a line-by-line defense he never gave. The same quote wore two meanings at once, which is why it spread. Supporters shared it as proof of staying human. Critics shared it as proof of looking away. Comment sections split into camps. One side argued for private experience over public narratives. If you've sat at the table with someone, you trust what you've seen.
I was a huge Chris Pratt fan, and then I met him and had to slow dance with him after he saw all of my weird tweets about him.
The other side insisted that personal warmth doesn't erase the weight of a cabinet job. In their view, praise from a megaphone carries consequences, even if it's wrapped in, "we don't talk politics." Industry voices piled on with a different angle, optics. They didn't parse policy, they read the move as brand calculus. Keep it personal, keep it brief, avoid hashtags, let the internet argue with itself. That approach turns a hot clip into a slow burn. Constant mentions.
You have RFK Jr., who's speaking out against the powers that be, says he wants to end military bases, U.S. military occupation.
Zero new fuel from him. It's not passive. It's a choice to let the audience do the framing while he stays in character as the guy who keeps family matters at the dinner table. Then came the think pieces and reaction videos, some dissected tone, calm, warm, almost domestic. Some focused on timing, why say this now with the job this visible? A few applauded the restraint. He didn't escalate, didn't dunk, didn't shade. Others called it a dodge. Compassion without accountability.
People are really mad at Chris Pratt right now. So Chris just did an interview, and in it he says that Jesus helps him deal with haters, and people got really...
The contradiction made it sticky, which is exactly how modern controversies stay in the feed. Silence became a tactic. No follow-up thread to clarify, no interview to walk it back, nothing that could be chopped into a new headline. He gave just enough to define his lane, personal loyalty, and left the rest to interpretation. That tells you plenty about how he plays moments like this, and it sets up the real reason he's comfortable holding that line. This isn't a casual Hollywood acquaintance. It's a family knot that stretches across two dynasties.
Bestie, that one gave me shakes of literal rage. He basically thanks his new younger wife for giving him a healthy daughter. And if you don't...
To understand why he keeps it personal, you have to see the web he married into and how loyalty looks when the last names in the room carry history. This isn't a casual Hollywood connection. It's a knot tying two American dynasties in one living room. Chris Pratt married Katherine Schwarzenegger, whose mother is Maria Shriver, a Kennedy. Maria and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. grew up as first cousins, which makes Pratt and RFK Jr. family by marriage.
A woman in a van in front of me hit a bear and killed it, a young bear. So I pulled over.
That's the backdrop to the podcast moment. Not a political summit, a dinner table where the jokes land before the arguments ever start. Inside that circle, expectations are old school. Maria Shriver is known for manners, accountability, and faith. Pratt has talked about how she keeps standards high and how that rubs off on the next generation. Add Arnold Schwarzenegger's side of the table, a legacy of discipline, training, and public service. And you start to see why Pratt defaults to character over controversy.
This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More important.
In a house like that, loyalty isn't a press strategy. It's the family setting. The branches spread wider: siblings, cousins, spouses, kids, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. Moments where headlines don't matter because the people in them do. That's the lens Pratt chose on the mic. Speak to the person he knows, skip the policy, cross-examination, and leave the room exactly as he found it. Laughing, dealing cards, passing plates. And right as the online noise crested, he reached for something quieter.
Imagine this. Hollywood superstar Chris Pratt hanging out with one of the most controversial political figures in America.
A milestone for his son. The timing said more than any follow-up post could. Next, the birthday message that reset the tone and showed why he kept the rest of it off stage. Right as the discourse hit boiling point, Chris Pratt chose a different volume. Soft, personal, ordinary. He posted rare snapshots for Jack's 13th birthday, the kind of father-son moments that usually live on a fridge, not a feed. A collage of games, matching jerseys, little rituals you only build over years.
In 1996, when I was 42 years old, I got struck with a disease.
The caption was simple and direct, full of pride and faith. No rallying cry, no counter-argument, just a dad marking a milestone. The details mattered because they felt lived in. He highlighted Jack's woodworking projects and love of animals, hobbies that sound like weekends spent in garages and backyards, not red carpets. He didn't push hashtags or force a narrative. The message was addressed to one person, even though millions could see it. That tone tracks with how he talks about family in general, steady, practical, and gentle.
I had this rule with my old man, and I have it with my son, which is when you're fishing, you can swear. And so we're out fishing.
He and Anna Faris co-parent. At home with Katherine Schwarzenegger, there are 3 younger kids and the usual chaos of bedtime and breakfast. It's a blended family that tries to keep structure without turning the house into a press release. He often frames the job as showing up, keeping manners, holding kids accountable, and letting them grow at their own pace. Katherine has been open about preparing for step-parenthood like a craft, even working with a coach to get the role right. That says something about the household ethos.
So apparently there were 13 times that Chris Pratt was called out for being problematic. And as a dude that really doesn't understand the hate that he gets, I thought
Don't wing the hard parts. Learn them. For Pratt, that shows up in how he speaks about gratitude for the thankless work of setting boundaries, especially when a child is navigating divorce in multiple homes. None of that is flashy. All of it is real. The anniversary post earlier in the summer carried the same weight. Dressed up for a family night, faces of the little ones covered for privacy, a short note to his wife. Again, the signal was intimacy over spectacle. It's a pattern.
He's funny. He's wonderful. I love him, says Chris Pratt about RFK Jr., a man who is quite literally ending cancer research and...
Whenever the public volume cranks up, he foregrounds the quiet rooms where he's most accountable. And that's why the birthday post hit differently in the middle of a storm. It wasn't damage control, it was continuation. Proof that his center of gravity is the kitchen table, not the trending tab. The subtext was clear. Whatever people are arguing about online, the big story in his life that week was a teenager waking up older and taller than yesterday. It also reframed him for anyone watching with a cynical eye.
Chris Pratt married your daughter, Katherine.
He is such a great guy.
Yes.
Not only a very talented guy and a great actor.
You can debate the wisdom of praising a powerful relative in a polarized moment. You can't fake the long work of being present for a 13-year-old. The post turned attention toward the one space where internet takes don't decide anything. Families making daily choices that never make headlines. Of course, outside that frame, the pressure didn't fade. The relative at the center of this conversation sits in one of the most scrutinized chairs in government. Decisions are constant. Optics are relentless.
Chris, you worked alongside Aubrey Plaza in Parks and Rec. It must be great seeing how well she's doing in White Lotus.
Yeah.
And every kind word from a famous in-law gets measured like policy, even if it's not meant that way. That's where we go next. What's actually on the line inside the nation's health apparatus, and why the stakes around it amplify every sentence said about the man in charge. Strip away the headlines and you're left with a simple, heavy truth. Health leadership touches daily life. It affects how fast clinics get funding, which drugs are covered, how emergencies are managed, and whether people trust the guidance they hear. That's not abstract. It shows up in the price of a prescription and the wait time at a hospital.
In politics, you inherit enemies, and when you jump on the bandwagon with.
Inside the building, the challenges are human before they're political. Staff want safety and clear direction. Scientists want room to work without spin. Managers need budgets to land on time. When morale dips, talent leaves. When trust cracks, even good policy gets a cold reception. That's why internal petitions and open letters matter. They're smoke signals from the people doing the work. Outside, the optics war never stops. Viral wellness pushes make for quick wins and easy clips.
Chris Pratt described his relative, U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as great, funny, and wonderful. Proceeded to say that he loved.
But they can also look like gloss if they're not paired with quiet, steady fixes. Better protections for workers, cleaner communication, faster response systems, smarter guardrails against misinformation. The job is balancing the show and the substance, and the audience is everyone. The stakes run on two clocks. One is public, the news cycle that rewards loud moments. The other is operational, the slow grind of procurement, staffing, labs, and long-term programs that don't trend.
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other...
If the public clock outruns the operational one, the gap becomes the story. That's when confidence slips, and every comment from a famous relative gets treated like a policy statement. Which brings us back to Pratt. A warm line about family doesn't change any memo, any budget, any protocol. But in a season where trust is fragile, even kindness gets read for subtext. That's the tension he walked into without naming it. And it explains the line he keeps holding: personal loyalty over public sparring when Hollywood collides with policy.
Chris Pratt is going to catch hell for this one. He just will. God forbid you have a little bit of common sense, compassion, or critical thinking. Watch what he says.
In politics,
he's played this before. Eyes open, words measured. Chris Pratt keeps his public lane narrow on purpose. Praise the person he knows, skip the policy debate, and let the moment pass without feeding it. That's not indecision, it's brand control. The audience sees warmth. The headlines get nothing new to chew on, and the next post is back to family, work, or faith. In Hollywood, silence isn't empty, it's strategy. When you hold A-list visibility, every extra sentence becomes material for a week of takes.
Yes, I heard the news. Star Lord have mercy. Chris Pratt is making headlines now for his controversial comments about RF.
Pratt trims that risk at the source. No numbered threads. No late-night clarifications. No hashtags that draft him into a side. He frames contact as normal life, dinners, jokes, cards, so the story stays human, not ideological. There's also the split screen of his image. On one side, franchise star, outdoorsy, dad energy, faith-forward captions. On the other, a giant platform that could tilt any discussion by accident. He bridges that contradiction by narrowing the aperture to character.
I think he's great. I think he's funny.
He's wonderful.
I like him.
Chris Pratt has only positive feelings towards Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Here's the person I know is safe, sticky, and hard to refute without demanding he litigate issues he never brought up. The approach works because it respects how attention behaves now. The more you explain, the longer you trend. The longer you trend, the more extreme the interpretations get. By resisting the urge to elaborate, he lets opposing narratives fight each other instead of fighting him. Viewers project what they want onto a short, neutral statement. His brand remains intact for the next premiere.
And I've seen, and I'm not in politics obviously, but there's a certain level to this in Hollywood.
The next project, the next post about the kids. There's a moral geometry to it too. Loyalty in private, restraint in public. He can be a cousin-in-law without being a spokesperson, a supportive relative without carrying a brief. That lets him show kindness without endorsing any single policy choice. It's a line that sounds thin until you remember most people relate to family first and headlines second. Could he cross the line? Only under specific pressure. A misquote that needs correcting.
Hey, what is this for?
Who's just test?
a family member misrepresented in a way that harms his own house, or a professional obligation that forces clarity. Even then, expect precision. One sentence, not a speech. He will not become the main character in a fight he didn't start. And that circles back to why the moment hit. In a season when everyone is pushed to pick teams, he chose a smaller story. Character over controversy, and stuck to it. Next, the markers that will tell you where this goes from here.
I'm sure you've heard that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. made big news recently by announcing that he's cutting 22...
And what to watch for when private loyalty meets public power again. The story moves on 2 tracks now. On one track is the office itself. Watch for whether the department doubles down on internal trust, clearer communication, visible safety steps, and fewer headline stunts in favor of steady wins. If the tone shifts from viral clips to quiet fixes, you'll feel it in how the conversation changes. Less spectacle, more substance. On the other track is the culture war rhythm.
Chris Pratt, I hear you are a magician. Dude, yes I am.
If a new flashpoint hits public health, expect the clip of Pratt's I love him to resurface with fresh takes. The real tell will be his response pattern. Does he keep it to family updates and faith-forward captions, or does he break form with a precise one-line clarification? His history points to restraint. A departure from that would mean the pressure got personal. There are softer markers too. A run of major press for his next project could invite a follow-up question he can't dodge. A family milestone post could re-center the narrative again.
My father was walking at the bottom of the hill with John McComb when I got home, who was the CIA director, who was one of...
And if the wellness push keeps spawning viral moments, the internet will keep forcing a choice. Treat it like harmless motivation or demand it line up with heavier policy work. Keep an eye on cadence. If the department's wins start stacking, staff retention improving, programs landing on time, the temperature drops and the family angle shrinks. If missteps pile up, every kind word from a relative gets recast as endorsement, no matter how carefully it was delivered. That's the compass for what comes next.
Along well with RFK Jr., especially when they've crossed paths at family dinners.
Institutional trust on one side, celebrity restraint on the other. When those lines cross, the debate reignites. And that sets up the final question this video began with: how far does loyalty go when the room gets louder than the dinner table? In the end, this wasn't a manifesto or a policy speech. It was a celebrity choosing to speak about a person he knows, not an office that person holds. Chris Pratt kept the frame small on purpose. Dinners, jokes, birthdays, a family that's bigger than any headline.
Hostess Twinkies, you should be able to do that, but you should know what the impacts are on your family and on your health.
The internet tried to zoom out and turn it into a referendum. He refused to play the lead. That tension is the whole story. Personal loyalty collides with public responsibility. Warmth meets a job that shapes real lives. And a single line, I love him, gets treated like a vote when it was meant as a glimpse into a living room. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When someone you know steps into big power, how much should your private experience count in public? Does character at the table outweigh controversy in the timeline? Or should the role define the response every time? Drop your take below, because the next turns in this story won't just happen in press rooms. They'll happen in the way we decide what loyalty should look like.